Well, Australia's energy market operator will be given powers to buy and store more gas to try to ease the national energy crisis. State, territory and federal energy ministers have agreed to 11 points of action aiming to secure energy stability over the medium to long term. But the Federal Minister Chris Bowen concedes none of the measures will immediately resolve the gas squeeze. For more on this, let's bring in the Shadow Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Ted O'Brien. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much, Ted. If the election had gone the other way and you were the minister right now, what would you be doing? I mean, there's no quick fix here, is there? As Mr Bowen's been saying, if there was, I assume the coalition would have already done it when you were in office. This isn't a problem that's just popped up in the past 3 weeks.
Well, good morning to you. And my answer to that is I'd be talking to the industry. That's what I'd be doing, and that's precisely what Minister Bowen is not doing.
Well, the Resources Minister, Madeleine King's been doing exactly that.
Government cannot fix this alone, and we cannot have the Climate Change and Energy Minister focusing the attention on finding solutions with his counterparts in states and territories. Now, don't get me wrong, I do think it's a good idea to meet with the state and territory ministers. That is important, and I welcome it. But what I'm deeply concerned about is that the minister is looking to government only to try to solve these issues. He should be engaging with industry. If there's going to be a meeting, a roundtable, if you like, it should be of those in industry, in particular, the leaders of our gas companies, and also probably coal. Nothing that came out of yesterday's meeting that has been announced, because we haven't seen the full 11 points, but nothing that's been announced is going to assist with the crisis we now face. That has to be the priority. And I haven't heard that one iota from Minister Bowen, and that is a concern.
Well, as the government keeps saying, the Resources Minister, Madeleine King, has been tasked with speaking with industry, and she's been behind closed doors having those meetings all week, is my understanding. One of the issues that she's been talking to them about is the possibility of a gas reservation policy. Is there any reason why Western Australia's gas reservation policy wouldn't work nationwide? Could that be an ideal outcome in your view?
Well, the former Labor government actually were the ones to knock it on the head. The prospect of actually having a reservation policy on the East Coast like the West. I think it would be not the right move to immediately engage in a new reservation policy on the East Coast, mainly for 2 reasons. Firstly, it will not solve the immediate issue at hand. Secondly, it does raise the risk of investment suspicion, otherwise known as sovereign risk, because in order for it to do its immediate job, it would ultimately have to apply retrospectively to existing contracts. And that is why the coalition government introduced a separate trigger mechanism. Now, this should be the mechanism that the government is using to have those conversations with the gas sector. Unfortunately, however, Minister Chris Bowen threw that mechanism under the bus last week. He called it as blunt as a basketball. And unfortunately, it was a foolish thing to do, because at this point, government should be working with industry, not just sort of cooperating with, but applying pressure. And if you were going to take away the one lever that you had to threaten the industry, that push comes to shove, you will be prepared to pull that lever. It's not just, the power of that lever is not just in its use, it's in its threat of use. But the new government has already taken that tool out of the toolkit, if you like, because Minister Bowen is already speaking about that as being a blunt instrument, which unfortunately maligns their efforts to try to get the solution through the industry.
Next hour, I'm interviewing the former Liberal WA Premier Colin Barnett. He's calling for a construction of a cross-continental gas pipeline. He points out that a similar pipeline was built from Perth to Karratha in just 9 months, so this is something that could happen over the next couple of years if the government got a move on. Is that an idea worthy of serious consideration?
Well, I tell you what, I welcome any ideas being put on the table, because something that we need to be doing as a nation as we move forward is to start addressing the question of how. How do we get the right balance of technologies to ensure we have a transition? Now, if people have new ideas to put on the table, I think they should be welcomed. My main concern from yesterday's meeting with Minister Bowen is he made it very clear that he was not prepared to commit to having gas and coal as part of the capacity mechanism to guarantee a reliability in the system. This is at a time where the Labor Party now are saying we need more gas, we need more coal, but then we have the minister saying he's not prepared to commit to coal and gas being as part of the capacity mechanism. We need a balanced approach with balanced technologies. And if different premiers, different ministers from across the country have ideas, now is the time to be putting it forward. We should be technology neutral and we should be seeking that balance.
Speaking of putting things on the table, I know you chaired a parliamentary committee inquiry into nuclear energy back in 2019, but pursuing nuclear was not a policy of the Morrison government. Now you're in opposition. Suddenly we're hearing a lot more about this from you and your colleagues saying it should be on the table. So just to clarify, now that you're in opposition, are you actually pushing for that ban on nuclear power in Australia to be lifted? And clarify for us, when you're talking about nuclear power, you're not advocating for big nuclear plants, are you? It's the smaller modular reactors that you're looking at, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Ashley, if I can start with that latter point. I'm certainly not interested, and nor is the opposition, in the old nuclear technology. Nobody wants old Soviet-era nuclear reactors anywhere near Australia. We don't want them with a barge pole. So what we are interested in considering, though, is new and emerging nuclear technologies, in particular small modular reactors. Now, that's where the latest technology is at. And there has been no change in our approach to date. That is, we believe in a technology neutral approach. And that means all technologies should be on the table, and that does include nuclear technology. And so, of course, as the new shadow in this portfolio, I'll be going around the countryside, wide and far, consulting on these issues. And I will unashamedly be seeking people's views on nuclear energy technology as a potential for our future energy mix, along with a lot of other issues that I'm really wanting to hear from not just the public, but also different businesses and the community sector at large. So I look forward to that challenge over the months ahead.
Okay, so it's not your policy yet to actually lift the ban on nuclear, is that right? And when it comes to those small nuclear reactors, the CSIRO's looked at this as well. Essentially, their findings seem to be that compared with solar and wind, those SMRs are a lot more expensive. We'd heard Jim Chalmers saying the economic case doesn't stack up. The New South Wales Liberal Minister, Matt Keane, saying you're chasing unicorns. Is there actually evidence that it can stack up economically?
There is evidence. And again, our approach as a nation has to be a balanced one. And we have to compare technologies. What we should not do is ban, make it illegal to consider a technology on the basis that it might be too expensive. I disagree with those who say that it is cost prohibitive. But that's okay. There's plenty of time for us to look at this, and that's what we will be doing. As for
okay, so sorry, just to clarify that, it is your policy
to
lift the ban now then? Is that what you're saying? The ban should be lifted now?
Well, I was actually just about to get to that. When it does come to the Coalition's policy, as I hope you'll understand, while it is a responsibility of mine now moving forward, finalising those policies before the next federal election won't happen this week. Won't happen in week one. It's important first and foremost that we're very clear about the values and principles that will drive our approach. And I've already spoken about some of those in terms of technology neutrality, getting the right balance. But we've got a lot of listening to do, and that will be my priority moving forward as we formulate our policies ahead of the next federal election. And while I'm doing that, my job will be to keep the new government to account. In particular, they made one big promise to the people of Australia. The Labor government promised they would reduce people's power bills. That was their number one promise when it came to energy. And my job will be to hold them to account for that, to be constructive where I can and critical where I must. But how the new minister, Chris Bowen, responds to the current energy crisis will have an impact, no doubt, on his capacity to deliver on the promise he made only 3 weeks ago to the people of Australia. That's what we'll be holding him to account, lower power bills.
Ted O'Brien, appreciate you joining us on Newsday. Thanks for your time.